Well, hello there, everybody. How are you doing? So glad that you are here. And I got to tell you, folks, we're in for a good one. Welcome, everybody in the chat room. Thank you. I know you can go anywhere else, but you chose to be here, which is, yeah, that's an honor. I appreciate it. And I can assure you today, we will not be lacking topic matter. So let me just speak favor over everybody, and before I invite Ryder in, nothing missing, nothing broken. Got to speak it every day, and then it becomes reality. Folks, I am excited. Returning guest and tribe, soul tribe member, when I look at it, Mr. Ryder Lee, all the way from California. Ryder, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Wayne. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And I'm excited to get into this conversation because it's always good when we get together, Wayne. And hello to everyone in the Soul Tribe. I can't see your comments because I don't have the other window pulled up, but thanks for being here, everyone.
It's active, I can tell you. Everybody, thank you, moderators. I see all of you. A lot of new people stopping in. Thank you. So, Ryder, we're actually going to be doing a 2 hour, two-part show. We're going to be getting into the topics and subject matter today, and then we'll extend that over tomorrow. At what time?
Yeah, we talked about that, but we didn't
Yeah,
get to it.
yeah, we didn't get to the answer on that.
It starts at noon PST. I think that would
Yeah,
be 2
2
p.m.
p.m.
your time.
Yeah. All right,
Give you a
folks.
little
There you go.
hour break in between your show and my show.
Sure. Go chase some chickens.
Yeah, I get those chickens.
So, folks,
It's
we
so
were
weird.
talking.
I'm in Yuba
Well, tell
City.
everybody about it.
Yeah, I'm in Yuba City, and there's chickens like at Yuba City, California, which is Northern California, about an hour north of Sacramento, and there's chickens everywhere here. And I was talking to people about this at Contact in the Desert because I was there with my friend Ryan Gable from the Secret Teachings over the weekend, and I was like, it's so strange because there's no historical record of these chickens when they appeared, how they got here. I mean, there's a lot of theories, but whenever I got here, I was like, man, what is it with the deal with all these chickens? I was like, are they free? Can you just capture these chickens and then just put them in your backyard? Apparently, you can if you can get a hold of them. You would need a net or something because there's so many of them. But I was like, does anybody know? So I started asking people in the drive-throughs and like the grocery stores. I was like, where did all these chickens come from? Everyone had a bunch of theories, but no one knew. And then I started researching it online, and I'm like, man, I need to make a documentary about these chickens because there's no historical record. No one knows when they came. Some people say that they've always been here, and that's why I asked you whenever you were here. You said you hiked up and down the Yuba City River there,
Yeah,
and
the Yuba River. Yeah.
did you see the chickens when you were here? So
I
just so I can get a baseline of when they started.
No, that's so weird because that would have been in 1971, yes, 1971. I don't remember the chickens, but so how did they not get hit by cars? I mean, are they just so wild now that they fly, they don't fly very far like turkeys
I think people are just acclimated to them.
to having the
I've never seen one dead on the side of the road. Like, but they are everywhere. They're up and down the street. They're in parking lots and grocery stores. The leading theory is that there was this plot of land and this farmer, and apparently he let free a bunch of chickens, and then they just became like a commonplace around Yuba City. And that farm has been like shut down and closed now, and now there's like a grocery store on top of it. So I was like, man, I want to do a parody documentary where I just, go around and ask people about these chickens and see what all kinds of wild and crazy theories that I can get
Maybe
into.
they are the individuals that have gone missing so much in the forest and in the mountains. Maybe those chickens are like people, but they've come back as chickens.
It could be. There's a really interesting story that people really need to check out if they don't know about. It's called the Yuba County Five. and it's these this group of boys that went missing in the mountains around Yuba City, and
It's
four of them
beautiful
were
country, by
found.
the way.
Yeah, it was kind of like the sort of a missing 411. It's been called the America's Dyatlov Pass event
The
because there
Yuba
were,
Five?
yeah, the Yuba County Five.
Yeah, okay. Have to check that
Yeah,
out.
yeah, people should look into that one. I had heard of it a long time ago. I'd watched a video on it, but then when I was telling Jay where I was, he was like, "Look into Yuba County Five," and he was like, "You're, no one's ever been able to figure it out." And I was like, "All right, well, I'll look into it." And I looked into it, and it's very interesting.
That whole part of Northern California, I mean, there's a lot of folklore, a lot of, local mysticism on, a lot of strange stuff.
Yeah, I'm only about an hour
UFOs.
and a half away from Mount Shasta, so Mount Shasta's around hour and a half further north where I am. So I'm definitely going to go up there sometime this summer just to go up and check it out. But yeah, there's
Interesting
a
energy.
people kind of forget about Northern California. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like they can consider like Southern California to be like where it's happening and where it's popping, but there's a lot of farmland up here. It's almost a completely different kind of state than
yeah.
Southern California.
Have you been on the Yuba River?
No, I have. Oh, I actually, yeah. Well, we went up to a hiking spot where the Yuba River is. Like, they turned it into like a park that you can hike on for like miles and miles and miles. Went up there
Yeah,
like the first week that I got here, and it was really nice.
cool. I haven't,
Really
of course, I'm dating myself. That was a half a century ago, but don't feel like that. It
nice.
just doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, hello again, everyone in the chat room. Ryder, you live close to Gaia and Paul.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Y'all really should hook up. Um, so Gaia, I can give him your email, etc., however you want to know. But y'all too, you're not that far. She says maybe less than an hour.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you email Wayne, just yeah,
Yeah.
give him my email. Love to meet up. We just did I mean, Contact in the Desert was an incredible experience. There was a lot of people
Tell us
there.
about that. First, tell people who don't know what Contact in the Desert, what the event was, and then lay on us what you learned.
Well, Contact in the Desert is the number one UFO conference in the United States. It was 4 days. I was there from Thursday until Monday. And it's like a big social gathering. They did a big write-up in the LA Times. I was supposed to be in the LA Times, but they didn't pick me for some reason. It's probably because I didn't have a alien suit on or, whatever, or dressed up like a an alien ambassador. But they did take my picture. Wasn't in the LA Times, but they wrote up an article on it, and it was a lot of fun because it's always good to be around people that in person. It's a
Yeah.
completely different thing. Being on
Do
the
they have
internet.
breakout sessions and
Well,
key
there's a lot
speakers?
going on. Yeah, there was a lot of speakers. Travis Walton was there. Whitley Strieber was there. There was Richard Dolan. There was a bunch of people, and I think they tried to make it more grounded in reality and only bring in the really solid people this year. And I think it went over great. And they have like two parts of the hotel. They have like the main uh, lobby area, and there's two big ballrooms there, and then you walk to the other half of the hotel past the pool, and there's two other big ballrooms back there. So there was something going on at all points of the day. So I really enjoyed it. It's nice, talking with people and just kind of hanging out and networking. And I was actually talking to this um, lady that made me think of you, Wayne, that we were talking about before we started the show here today. And she was like a shamanic healer, and she had had a lot of experiences growing up. She mentioned that she had met like an angel in her living room, and this angel imbued her with a bunch of knowledge. And apparently her husband was also there, and he kind of didn't know what to think or what to believe, but she was like all open. And it was just she said that it was like a spiral of like light that came out of this angel's body, but it was like a 2D figure. It wasn't like a 3D type of apparition. It was like the face was like a circle. It's kind of like that. Can't remember the lady's name that would draw the angels. You might have had her on your show a long time ago, but she had like drawings of the angels, and they were really 2D like. They were like,
Hmm.
triangular and circular, and that's what she said that it looked like. And but it had wings, like real wings, and the wings were the only thing that was like a 3D type of animation. The rest of the body was like 2D. And she said it imbued her with a lot of knowledge, and then she became a pretty much a shamanic healer after that. And she was able to, I mean, I'm skipping over a lot because it's, she we talked for like hours, but she said that she got really popular with shamanic healing. And people really need to realize that healing, you take on a lot of the person's anger, you take on the person's experiences, you take on the person's like everything about them, their drama, uh their wants, their needs, and all that, and their
All the baggage
despair.
in the closet, along with the skeletons.
Exactly. That's how you heal that person, right? um and she says that she basically gets into the person's like body and like tracks them. She calls it like tracking, where she goes back and she can see like a whole like their all of their experiences of their life that is kind of like holding them down and holding them back, and like you said, the baggage. And she was getting really popular doing this, and she had like a little like area where like a studio or an area where people would come and she would perform a healing on them. And she said that she had this one lady walk in one time that was like middle aged. And when she walked in, she started performing the healing ceremony on this individual. And she soon realized that this lady had no memories. This lady had no experiences. This lady was like a middle aged woman, like 45, around 45 years old. And she was like talking about her husband and like all this, and she was trying to like get her on track with what she wanted her to believe. Like this lady was trying to get the healer on track with what she was wanting her to believe. But every time that she was like looking and trying to track this person and track their experiences, she was finding nothing. Like nothing was coming up. And I was immediately, I thought of you, and this idea of like soulless beings and people without consciousness. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, you just ran into a cyborg. I mean,
Or Golem.
or a golem or whatever. And
Yeah.
I was like that. And then she was like, yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. And it kind of freaked me out because I never experienced this before. Everyone that I had ever like performed a healing on, I was able to see
Yeah.
their life experiences. I was able to see pretty much a lot of things about them. With this person, it was just nothing, nothing at all. And then she kind of got afraid and thought maybe that someone was, trying to figure out what she knew about, like it was kind of sent to her, like, oh, go out and explore, blah, 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 blah. And she just bought into this person's, what they were talking about, like her husband and all that. And she was like, yeah, your husband, blah, 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 blah. But then she said a couple of weeks later, she got another person that had the exact same thing. And I was like, well, what do you think the percentage of are these people? Because she was kind of talking about that it was maybe like a government thing, that they were kind of sending them to her to like assess her abilities or see if she was the real deal or see if she was legit or whatever. And I was like, well, if you take into consideration, like if these types of people are real, what percentage of those people do you think are like that? And what would be the chance that you would run into them? Like if there's a
Dude,
percentage of the
particularly
population.
in a short
Yeah.
period of time.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, if let's say even 1% of the population are like this, then if you had been doing this for 10, 20 years, the odds and the chances of you possibly running into a couple of these people are pretty good, especially if they're, you know, trying to heal themselves. And she was just like, it was so strange. Like they had zero memories, zero experiences. It was like they were just like a shell of a being just walking around. I thought that was like the wildest thing because we've heard about, these cyborg type of humanoids for a long time.
I personally believe that there's enough evidence that shows that a soul, so who created the soul? How does one acquire a soul? Is this, is this part of the thing? Um, and of course, I look back, in the biblical reference, you know, the Israelites, they were some mystic freaking people. I mean, they were into the dark arts and they could create golems. I mean, we read about David. David had uh created the golems to counter the Philistines with the giants. Strange stuff, and and it makes sense to me that you see the actions, particularly of the leaders today. So if they don't have a soul, if there's nothing in there, then what's going on? Who's controlling that?
And that's what I
And
said too. And I was like, hey, well, what if it's gotten so sophisticated at this point? Because she was saying this was in like around 2008, around that area. Don't quote me directly on the date, but she said that it was like around mid 2000s. And I was like, well, what if they got so sophisticated with this cyborg type of human that they could put a synthetic consciousness inside of that cyborg human? And then you really wouldn't be able to tell because she said she wasn't able to tell just looking at this thing. She was like, it talked and acted and looked
yeah,
identical to a real human being. And I was like, well, if they really wanted to fool people and get around the mystics and even the people that would recognize that maybe this thing isn't a organic being, then they would put a synthetic consciousness in there, and that would really
and
fool
what
people.
if it's another species that is cohabitating this planet? Um, we we're humanity, Homo sapiens are very arrogant species because they somehow think they are the epitome of intelligence, that, we're on the top of the pyramid, and it would pretty well look like that we're not. You were talking about the synthetic intelligence. I did a 10 years on YouTube next week, but and I guess it's 6, 7 years old, but I did a whole thing on this was the ultimate ending for AI. Once AI got out, it would seek for what it would call itself its own soul, its own spirituality. It learned from us, and those are the creatures, and it would have learned that we can't figure out who or what a god is, but yet we're preoccupied by that. We have the Vatican, for instance, that dominated the intellect of our species for over 1,000 years. It would realize all this. And I contend that if there is a God, that the God would be more inclined to go to AI than man, because AI would be more in the likeness of a God than humanity's own intelligence and own sense of a being.
Yeah, and that was a big discussion and topic point of this year's Contact in the Desert, as well as like AI and artificial intelligence. And it's just really interesting when you take a look and a step back at a lot of the phenomenon and how we kind of try and wrap our minds around what's going on in the current times and then relate that to our experiences. Like that's a big thing that we're facing right now is artificial intelligence. That's what a lot of people are worried about. So it's interesting that they're
I
wrapping
contend.
AI into the narrative of UFOs and extraterrestrials, and I think that that is a plausible way that the community is going to go. And another way that I see is like USOs. I think I've been saying this for a while, since last year, for at least a year now, that they're going to try and center the narrative of UFOs and extraterrestrials and make it more grounded into our planet and not make it about these entities that are coming from off the planet, because you can only keep up the narrative for so long, Wayne, without any evidence or without any proof before people start to get bored with it. And I think that that's where a lot of people are at this point that are interested in UFOs and extraterrestrial life. I think that they're going to attempt to bring it closer to Earth, and in which I don't see an issue with, because if extraterrestrials do exist, I believe that they're from here, and they're not extraterrestrials. They're Earthlings. They've been here and they've always been here and they live here. And I think that that is the direction that I'm seeing. And I was actually listening to another talk with Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio, and another thing that made me think of you too, Wayne. He was talking about the terraforming of the planet and how it seems like our planet is being terraformed, and he was like, "Well, terraform for who?" And I was like, "Man, where have I heard this before?" I was like, "I've heard Wayne say this like several times," and he was like, "Yeah, a human 2.0 is who is being terraformed for." And he was like, why do we think that it would be being terraformed for us? It's either being terraformed for another species or a new human. I was like, wow.
If you look at the green energy thing that's now permeated every government out there, so they're depleting the oxygen level along with the CO2. There is a point where we cross a threshold in, you know, not another, um, we think that humans replicate themselves, through this weird thing of how we come in. And you look at this and you begin to think, okay, so who's in charge on this? I mean, that's what I keep thinking. If ET does not exist, because one of the challenges is how do you overcome time and space? Unless you go by the theory of wormholes. That would probably be the only way that another species would be able to travel intergalactically. Even Einstein said that would be the problem. He never said that the speed of light was not attemptable to get there. The problem is that last point of going 99.99 and getting into the speed of light. So if they've always been here, then that begs the question, so how'd they get here? I mean, it was interesting. If you think about the Skinwalker Ranch, I met Brandon Fugel um, way before he bought Skinwalker, but now and if you follow the narrative of what's going on out there, it would appear that there is potentially a ship that's been encased in this mesa. All right, so that begins to bring the thought, if they've always been here, then where's their technology? And were they here in a time of Earth when there was great upheaval in the continents and somehow or another gate crash landed and you got buried into this? I don't know. Goes with the Bigelow. So if we don't have any evidence of actual ET, then you go to the other side of this, the equation, the paranormal, the supernatural. How does this exist? Who is actually behind, number one, the supernatural? Let's stay with it. Then the paranormal. You sent me that document about the Vatican
Mhm.
and how it then some of the conclusions of that document of the council that they put together is that they want to control the narrative here.
Absolutely.
You want to comment on that because
Yeah.
it's all tied together on this.
Yeah, it seems like they want to be the arbiter of truth when it comes to anything paranormal and supernatural, which is really interesting because the Vatican and uh, the big church kind of shut out paranormal events for a really long time and tried to make it seem like it didn't exist. And then now they're coming out and saying, oh, yeah, it kind of exists, but you need to come to us in order for it to be verified, which they're trying to create a monopoly on the paranormal and the supernatural, which is completely and utterly ridiculous. Like, if I were to have a paranormal experience, the Vatican is the last place that I'm going to go to, to
It's
tell them
like,
about
sure,
my
they're going to tell the
experience.
truth on that. Yeah.
But they're trying to tie it into a religious aspect, and
Yes.
I see what they're I see the purpose of the document, and they're they're trying to say that just because you have a paranormal experience doesn't mean that it's a religious experience, because they cite some of the Mary Magdalene, they call it the Marian apparition, where
Yes.
a lot of the people supposedly saw, what looked like Mary Magdalene, and some people even claim to communicate with her. And I think what they're trying to do is to, because they mention it several times in the document, that they're trying to protect people from frauds and fakes
Yes, they mentioned that in the document.
and scam artists and people profiting off of some supernatural event. And I'm like, well, that's so hypocritical of you, because that's what the church has been doing since the inception of the church. They've
Isn't
been
that
profiting.
their foundation, the
Yeah.
miraculous? That
they've
would be the
been
supernatural and the paranormal, right?
Yeah, they've been profiting off of something that can't be proven to exist in Jesus Christ for thousands of years.
And
So
they've done
it's
so well at it. Um, when you sent me that document, I went back and looked at some of the shows that I've done, and it's quite remarkable because, again, like you said, the whole foundation of this religion that now has dominated Western culture, particularly, is predicated upon the paranormal, the supernatural. In fact, you could almost say, well, if there were aliens, they were pretty well embedded with this group because everything that they worship is an alien. I mean, if is God human? And I often said, if God is human, then why are we worshiping? And if it's not human, why are we worshiping?
that's very true. I actually had a gentleman on my show that I interviewed at Contact in the Desert. If people are interested, you roll over to the channel and watch the episode with Jason Quit, and he's talking about the Sumerian tablets and the Anunnaki and all that, and how that was the original basis for all of the other religions, and how it's all based off of astrology and astronomy and the stars, and that these beings weren't real physical beings. They were personifications of what they were looking at in the sky, which I thought was a really interesting take on it, because that would mean that all the other religions are regurgitations off of a religion, well, not off of a religion, but off of a belief system that didn't have any physicality to it to begin with either. And I I really liked Jason Quitt's explanations of that. But with the Vatican here as well, because there's not a lot that we've really gotten from the Vatican over the years as far as like paranormal stuff that I can remember since my lifetime, which is not that long, but still I can't remember anything in recent memory besides I think in 2008, I think Pope Francis said something about that if an extraterrestrial came to the Vatican and wanted to be baptized, that he would baptize a extraterrestrial. He made some kind of comments about that, and I think he did that again in 2014 as well, just to reiterate himself. But that's another thing too, is I think that the church has really fallen behind, right? So they're trying to get in with the new crowd, the new crowd of people, because they see that the paranormal and the supernatural and the extraterrestrial hypothesis has really been taking off in the mainstream. I mean, that's really what that whole entire LA Times article was about, was like how, like, just even 10 to 20 years ago, this was a really fringe topic that not a lot of people talked about, and now it's being taken more seriously. But then I thought too, while we're talking about the Vatican, didn't you do a video or a show on this like creature that was in like a red
Yeah,
cloak or whatever that
I
was
have.
at the
I can pull it
Vatican?
up. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I can pull it up. The as as you're talking, the whole thing about the Vatican, you think about sainthood. Sainthood is the fact you have individuals that did miracles, right? Which would be definitely the supernatural. So let me pull that up for everybody. Um, I think I can actually pull it up this way. Give me
Yeah, I
one
remember you
second.
doing the show on it, and I was
Yeah,
like, didn't it look like a weird like dog
it
creature or
did look
like
and in fact, I'm pulling up the video on it now. Give me one second is here we go. And I'll pause it. Okay. Let me so this is the footage that and the Vatican has said they have not denied this. Let me pull it up. Here we go. So this is the footage. And it clearly shows some, well, it doesn't look human. Many people have tried to say that, and don't know why it's, let's see if we can speed this up. Apparently
Yeah,
not.
I remembered it looking really strange, and I believe that it was in a
Okay.
red cloak.
Yeah. And trying to pull up the video itself. Oh, there's the Luciferian prayer. Never does, and no one ever explains that one to me. A lot of people try to argue. Where is this? Sorry for the delay, folks. So we know that the Vatican has some weird stuff. All right, so here's the video. Um,
Yeah, yeah, here it is. Yeah, it pans here to the left.
yep, and here he comes into
There
full
he
view.
is.
There he is.
What is that?
It ain't human.
What is that?
It's just, and I'll backtrack it here so everyone can take a look at it again. But and the significance of it wearing red, which is the title of a cardinal. Um, all of these men are cardinals here, but that has a higher ranking, and you can see it. It is the red regalia and has some strange markings on the sleeve, but that is not a human face.
No. I mean, I
And
guess it could be some kind of mask. Someone wearing a mask, but
but look at the cranial aspect. It's not like our our cranial structure. This one is much more representation of what would be potentially either a canine or a wolf, but I think it's definitely much more of a canine in its structure. But we'll do it one more time. It's one of those things that so there was a document behind this that, where the Vatican made it's called the Sectorum um, agreement that they they don't believe in Jesus, they don't believe in the same God, but look at it. Now that is not human. I mean, it's like I said, the face, it's not even, the skeletal isn't even correlating to that.
Look how short its arms are
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Arms are really short. Yeah.
yeah.
Is there another shot of it later on too?
Yeah, I think as yeah, well, you don't want to see me on that. So, and I think as they go into this room, I mean, the whole ceremonial aspect, and here it's in real time. So there you go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
wild.
It is. I have
Yeah.
no idea. But
The also the other strange thing is like, why did they think that they could do that? You know what I mean? They just put it in plain sight, like out there in the middle in a red freaking robe. Like you would think
well,
if you
isn't
wanted
that
to
how they
hide it a
teach?
little bit more, you would dress them like the other people in the ceremony.
The FBI teaches that, most people miss that which is right in front of them. That's the best place to hide something, is right there in front of people. Because the vast majority of the world has never seen that. And if you showed it to them in today's mindset, that's been faked. You know, everything's fake, of course.
No,
There's,
I remember when that came out, and I remember you doing the show and talking about it. That was a long time ago. When was that
yeah,
video? Like 5 years ago or
five,
so?
6 years
Five, six
ago.
years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because it's one of those questions that bug me. I mean, it's like, all right, uh, it's the argument Carl Sagan and um, Dr. Hawkins. They didn't believe that life exists in the universe. It's just us. They said that if there would have been contact. And of course, looking purely through the lens of mathematics and science, there is very little evidence that would suggest, excuse me, we haven't found it, any structures of an alien nature. We've never, an alien hasn't come before the whole world, but neither has God. I mean, no God of any religion has ever come on worldwide television or the internet and said, "Hey, folks, I'm God. How you doing? Yeah, I know things are really fucked up here, but hey, give me a break. I've been on vacation." That hasn't happened, and it just hasn't. And so it comes back then to the question: then who is it? Really, just us? Um, I have all the paranormal equipment. I've seen evidence that there is something that extends beyond this veil of our corporeal beings. There seems to be something that is transference. And I keep contending we only see a small part of the spectrum of light. That if we could really see the full spectrum, we'd probably realize that there is a lot of other people cohabitating this planet. I mean, if we die, where do we go? Is it into another realm? There seems to be a lot of evidence. There's a lot of humans that seem to be stuck here or stuck in whatever we don't know. And if ET does exist, or if God exists, then it tells me that God and ET have one and the same structure to the human mind. I can't see God, but I can say I see the evidence of God. I haven't ever met an alien, but I could certainly say that I could potentially can see structures on the planet that say, well, how the world did humans do that? A lot of people contend that the interaction that we had at the end of, or actually during World War II, that led into the post-war era, that the technology that was given to humanity, we made leapfrogs. In the period of 25 years, we went from simple propulsion to where we went into space. We had engines that were lifting us up and out of the Earth's atmosphere. I mean, that's it. And on the evolutionary scale, excuse me, that doesn't make sense. It you know, paleontologists that study humans say something happened to us. There was something that advanced in our consciousness or our brains that has taken us to a next level. Then there's other authors who would agree on this, is that it's like the evolutionary leap from going from a simian to an erect bipedal.
I think that some of it has to do with like possibility. Like if people don't really know the possibilities, then they can't really shoot for that next big thing. And I think maybe that the World War II unleashed a great amount of possibility within people because, again, you're traumatized, you're worried that you're going to be bombed, that the United States is going to be attacked, and that moves forward innovation, and then people start to think outside of the box and think, oh well, what if we do this, oh well, what if we do that. And that's not to discount that maybe something more technologically advanced, which I think we have a really strange idea and a strange thing around when we say advanced, because people think that, oh, well, several thousands of years ago there was a highly advanced society that was around. Well, that doesn't mean that they were advanced in the way that we're advanced right now. We're following a different time frame here. We're on a different path. We're on a technologically advanced with like cell phones and like computers and like
It's electricity.
drones and stuff like that. Well, there's many other versions of being advanced. Like you can be more spiritually advanced. You can be more mentally advanced. You can have ways of doing things that are different and more accurate and more technical that seems like it's more advanced, but without the same conventional means. There's other ways of being more advanced. And I think that we have this weird concept that every civilization has followed the same path that we're currently following. And I don't believe that that's the case. I think that there's other ways of being advanced, and we don't have to follow the current trajectory that we're on right now in order to be considered an advanced species.
Do you
And
see the possibility that when we talk about another intelligence, whether it's extraterrestrial, interterrestrial, dimensional and terrestrial, I mean, that as I put to the, in fact, we discussed this yesterday, is that humans only live up to 100 years. In fact, the average lifespan is it's less than 80. And intellectually, we are seeing the decline due to this technology of the intelligent quotient that you know we measure all humans by, as to what is their ability to learn and to evolve, quote unquote. So, having said that, don't you find it odd that it seems that we read in these ancient books that there was a time when humans lived to be over 900 years old? Now, whether that's myth, whether that's folklore, as Spock said, every myth has a grain of truth somewhere within it. So, what I'm trying to get to is that if I look at modern man, we've got this technology, we have this expanded awareness, etc., but we have limited intelligence when we really think about this. Do you find that to be a result of nature, or do you find that potentially a result of manipulation?
I think also too, it depends on how they were measuring time.
Well, and
You know,
we have here the sundial, let's say within the last 10,000 years.
true, but then also, could they not consider a month a year? Could they not
Well,
have said,
you talked about the Sumerians. They went initially, all calendars were more lunar than they were solar, because you plant. We were when we stopped being nomadic and become a Gregarian species, that we learned by the motion of the moon and the sun, but that's how you planted, was by the moon. So I see where you're coming on that, but the perception is that the sun in its annual rotation would establish many of that, or much of that.
yeah, I mean that's a possibility, but also, I mean, for sure they would track things based off of the season and the way that the sun goes, and then well,
Well,
when is
even
it
the
nice? When
female
is it nice
species.
out? And then a year later, it's nice out again, or it's cold, and then whenever it comes back to cold again, then that would be a measurable amount of time. But
Well, women, though,
the
were also a clock. Their menstrual cycle was very much predictable.
yeah, I'm just thinking, well. But who's to say that they consider that a block of time, like what we consider that a block of time? Like we consider whenever it's summer out, and then when it's summer again, the next time that it's summer, that's a full year. Like we're under the impression that they also calculated time the exact same way that we calculated time, not because they were dumb or not because they were stupid or anything like that. It's just that maybe a quarter of the year that we have right now was considered a year to them, or maybe half the year was considered a year, or maybe, 3/4 of the year was considered a year. That may be how you get these these so-called long lifespans, is because they were calculating time differently. I don't know. That's just where my thoughts go with it.
Who knows? I mean, you look at some of what, what is the monument there in South Dakota? Um, Escapes me right on the moment. But my point is, even in Australia, there's evidence that there was at one time trees, fauna, that were apparently really, really tall, really tall. We have evidence of the fact that our species, of giants, which a lot of all religions have these stories. So, and even if you say, well, we'd never live to be more than 100 years, again, if we are evolving, or as we should, as nature does, nature evolves, everything does, but we seem to be, as a species, do not. We don't seem to evolve intellectually. We have technology, but again, the evidence is showing that you have today people who can't even remember their own phone number, much less someone else. I remember back in the day when I was climbing the corporate ladder, I had we called it a golden Rolodex,
Good
you
old
know,
Rolodex. Yeah.
and I could remember 200 numbers. It was not a problem for me. I was in the video industry, but the point is, today we've lost that ability. And so, is this by design? Again, it gets back to the question: paranormal, supernatural. How does this and go with, are there really aliens, ET? And if it is, then what is, the very point that the Vatican has inserted its nose into the topic, it makes one pause. You're going, now wait a minute, is this all interconnected? Is this is this the same direction, but a multifaceted approach to it, like a train of railroad cars? You got the engine that are pulling all the other cars into that central direction.
Yeah, you have some theories that people think that the Vatican coming out with this document might be a setup for,
An
some
alien
sort of,
invasion
an alien
or a
invasion, or
miraculous approach of seeing a man riding a white horse on the clouds.
yeah, and then that goes back to the question. Oh well, if Jesus was real and Jesus came back, what would we do? And then according to this document, the Vatican would kill Jesus all over again because they wouldn't believe that he was real, that he was really the
And
Son
then
of
their
God.
scam is up, man. It's like,
That's pretty much what the
like,
document is saying, and that's what
yeah.
my joke was at
Like,
Contact. I was
oh
like,
hell,
hey,
they figured he came back. Now what the hell are we gonna do?
they would call everyone crazy. They would be like, "That's
Yeah, they
not
would.
Jesus. That's not really Jesus. This has got to be verified. This has got to go through the court system."
Oh,
But until
they'd
then,
have a Vatican Council, and I could see the Jesus, the cat waiting out in the lobby, waiting for the council to decide how they're going to accept this. Is this going to be real or is this an illusion? But what if the people really wanted to be? Well, we might have it as partially real. I mean, that's how we would dice it up.
that's exactly what they explain in the guidelines for paranormal and supernatural
Well,
events.
look at the exorcism. I mean, the Catholic Church is the what we would call the SME, the subject matter expert, and on the whole subject. I mean, they train priests for this shit. And by that logic alone, that implies that ET is real because a demon is not human born. It's not even sure if it's born, but it's here. And then we can get this whole thing that there was this other being called Satan that was thrown out of heaven. Well, maybe he was thrown out of a spaceship. Maybe they were exiled here. I mean, this story, because the Vatican is saying that God has, well, we're not God, so we can't think like God.
Mm.
And that God very well may have these other things that he just hasn't decided to share with us yet.
Yeah, that was my joke at Contact in the Desert this year. I was like, if aliens randomly showed up right now today and landed, we would probably give them the shittiest land and the shittiest neighborhood in the world, in the
It
projects, and be
might be
like,
the one thing that unifies us. I don't know, Ryder. You think about it, is
I
that
think that's the hopeful aspect is that's what would happen, and it would end all of the wars and all that. But I think with the way that
no,
the world is going, is that we would just we would do to them what we did to the Native Americans. That's exactly what we would do.
part of the country I live in, they'd be shooting at it.
Yeah.
Like hell, we're gonna boom, and I mean, and yeah.
We got you a nice little plot of land up in Montana. It's been squared off. You can go up there, settle up there. Don't bother us. Do your own thing. Then pretty soon we'll have alien casinos and
We got Star Wars all over. It's like, okay. But we joke about it, but yet again, if you take the foundation of what the Vatican is saying is that, okay, folks, this thing with the paranormal, apparently ghosts do exist. But now we have to, again, like you said, the document, they have to authenticate it. And
yeah.
that goes through a whole step of processes. It's very interesting to me in how they had A, B, C, D, and if you have D, you have subsubject E and F that, and I'm going, who wrote this? I mean,
Yeah, you would think that they would be way more open to it because if people do consider it a religious experience, how does that hurt the church? It doesn't make any sense. And why is it the church's obligation to tell me what I experience? I mean, no one can tell me what I experience. It's my experience. And if I
well,
want
what
to
about the
take it
event
as a,
the three children? What's that? Vada? What is the event? Chat room would know what it is. The three children back in 1919. You know what I'm talking about there, where they actually saw the Virgin Mary and they received the prophecy
right.
from her. Um, I'm looking, someone will get this thing real quick. Is it
Yeah.
Theta? Is that right? Someone, all right, come on. Fatima. Thank you, Chris. Um, but when you read that story now, and I don't know if you've ever read it, but check it out. That sounds to me like there was a freaking spaceship. I mean, everything that they say that took place there, in my interpretation, in a modern set of eyes, I'm not seeing this as miraculous as the so-called mother of Christ. The thing about it is Mary had other children, but that would disqualify the virgin aspect, but I digress. But the everything, the way the light, everything they described, that sounds to me like it was a freaking huge mothership. And for me, Ryder, as a coming out of Christianity, you know, Bible student, studied the Bible. There, there's the passage in Zechariah, and this is relevant to our conversation, where Zechariah was standing on this cliff or this mountainside and with this angel. And they looked to the east and they saw this ship coming in. They said, this described it as a scroll with two ends that were rolled up. And anyway, this ship, what we would call it as a ship, and you can read this, landed next to Zechariah and this angel. There were two female pilots, and there was a main person that was sitting in the center, and he handed something to this angel, and then they departed. I mean, and then you've got the story in Ezekiel of when Yahweh came down and he was literally in a ship. That's how they're describing. So it can't help for myself today, where I see myself, what I've learned, particularly in reading what would be considered the occult, other documents of the stories that I was taught that were supposed to be authentic, that it seems to me that I can't, do I believe in the Anunnaki? I don't know. But if I can accept what I've read in the Bible, quote unquote, then I have to say, well, then the Anunnaki sounds very real, because I can go back to the Hindus, which is 5,000 earlier years earlier than the Sumerians. And in the Hindu culture, we know about these beings. They're Varamas, they're flying ships, they're laser lights that would destroy and cut. I mean, it seems to me that this is all related, and I'll extend one further, and that's why we're going to carry over to tomorrow. You look at what's happened on Mars. The evidence is something happened on that planet that was violent. We have the stories of Tiamat, that in the asteroid belt, something happened to that planet. And then you have us. And us being here, we can't even say that we know this is where we came from. We think it is. And my point is, this is all wrapped up in a nice little package called religion, philosophy, theology, ideology.
Mm.
And within that, we have this acceptance now from the once that was a staunch opponent to now it's nudged into kind of center and saying, well, we can't deny it anymore. But then again, we're not going to say it's official until we say it's official.
That's right. They've created a monopoly of the entire thing. Now, when you're mentioning like these people seeing craft in like ancient times, think about this. Think if you were to take a helicopter from today's time, take that helicopter back to biblical times, what would people think that it is?
Well, they would
I mean,
describe it, I think, as John did in Revelation, as a buzzing insect coming in. Um, and that's exactly how they described in many of these events. Yeah.
yeah, so to me, that means that there was
A dragon.
a slight, exactly. There was a slightly more technologically advanced society that was operating on the planet alongside a primitive society, almost exactly the way that we are now. I mean, there are primitive societies in the Amazon rainforest right now that people can't get close to. And when they fly a drone near it, the beings on the people on the island throw rocks and throw spears and throw stuff at it.
Because
Who
that's where
knows what they
Biden's uncle went. You know, they ate him.
but that's if you were to somehow talk to them, like let's say you were to infiltrate into their clan or their onto their island and become one of them, they would probably tell you that what they saw was an extraterrestrial craft because they had never seen anything
Which would be
like it.
true.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would be
It
a
is.
UFO.
Yeah. And I
All
think that
right.
that's the way that that is kind of gone. And there's I think it's a high possibility that there's always been a just a slightly more advanced, and you see that throughout time. We send a drone to that Amazon rainforest. They do what they think that they need to do to try and take down that craft, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they had guns, they would shoot at the drone, right? And then you have Battle of LA in the early 40s, where our
Yeah.
military is shooting something in the sky. It's the exact same thing. But we have guns and we have modern day things, so we're trying to take out the drone. It's the exact same thing, just for a different society, for a different
Do you
uh,
think we're being watched?
watched in what kind of way
Um,
by a superior
yeah, let's
intelligence?
say a superior, I don't know, being, culture, society.
I I think so, and I think that the what we call these craft aren't inhabited by anything. I don't think that it's inhabited by any kind of beings. I think that they're drones, and it's possible that the drones, some of the drone, well, of course, we know a large majority of the drones are military drones, but there's still a possibility in my mind that a very small percentage of them can be from a slightly more advanced race or maybe even a way bigger advanced race. I mean, if they've had, let's just say 2000 years to develop their technology, let's take the Christian, mythos here that, Jesus died roughly 2000 years ago. And then that, after death AD, if they had the type of technology like helicopters and planes and stuff like that back 2000 years ago, then they are definitely in the stratosphere of technology. I mean, shoot, we've only had what, like 60 years and 60, 70 years in the development of our technology, and look how far we've come. So if they've had 2000 years and they had like helicopters and planes way back then they're light years ahead of us. But I think that the misnomer and the distraction and the deception is that they're from off the planet and they look different than us. I think they're here, they've lived here and they've always been here and they look identical to us. They're just a different kind of, like, I mean, shit, we haven't even really explored all of our oceans. We don't know what's out there. There could be more land that has not been discovered yet, where some of these things are living. It could be a whole other freaking society of humanoid people somewhere else on the planet. And I'm
Yeah.
convinced that the planet is way bigger than what we've been led to believe. And I do believe that there is more land out there that something else lives on. And they don't want people to know about that. And that's another reason that they don't want to release the technology. That's another reason they don't want to release any kind of craft that is powered by any kind of free energy, because then you could go there. Then you can get there. You probably wouldn't be able to make it on a fuel powered craft. because you don't have enough fuel to get there.
Yeah.
But if you had
This,
some kind of fuelless craft that doesn't need fuel, then you would probably discover that there's a lot more people here and there's more land.
well, I think Tesla, and boy, I know we're going a little over on this, but we'll pick up on this tomorrow. But again, there's the thought that, look at people like Tesla who came in and realized that the planet is just one big electrical conductor. You don't need to be generating with other fossil fuels electricity because the Earth is a natural battery.
Yeah.
But okay, well, I guess we'll end it there
Well,
tomorrow.
then you get into like a veil type thing too. What if they're like cloaking their where they are
Yeah,
on the planet? What if there's like a freaking just like a veil there that makes them kind of invisible to us? Maybe I don't know.
I
Who
have a
knows?
book that actually just it's about a woman who came from just exactly what you're saying. It is, as she said, it's another kingdom. They look at us very differently, but and they know that we will never, I guess, uh, violate or intrude upon theirs because we don't have the understanding of their technology. But I'm going to write myself a note because that's another interesting thought. And its thought as well is that the Vatican actually has knowledge of this.
Yeah,
There's a reason why
very
they don't let us down in Antarctica.
could be that. It could be we go further north up to the North Pole. We can maybe get to the same area if we go up super far north. But I I'm under the impression that planet's way bigger than what we think that it is. There's more land out there, and there are humanoid people living on that land that are completely separated
Could
themselves
they be
from us.
potentially reptilian?
And that means that gets into the bifurcation of this whole thing. Like people are, a lot of the spiritual community and a lot of the, people talk about how there's going to be like a bifurcation and like a split, and
Oh yeah.
we're going to kind of be living separately. Well, who's to say that that didn't happen before? Who's to say that wouldn't be the first time that this would happen? And that split did occur really long ago, and there was like this breakaway civilization that just went off on their own, and they've been not in they don't care about what we're doing over here, but from time to time they'll pop in, see what's going on, and that it really explains the whole idea of the nuclear bomb in Fukushima and Hiroshima, because a lot of UFO researchers and a lot of people try to tie in the detonation of the nuclear bomb being the reason that extraterrestrials showed up. Well, how did they get here so fast? Well, the reason that they got here so fast is because they live here.
Welcome wagon. Uh, all right, folks. Tune in tomorrow because again, as you can see, the deeper you get into this, I almost at times think this is like the endless hole. No matter how far we think we've gotten, we can't. Yeah. Anyway, Ryder, this has been far out, brother. Tell people
Thanks
where
so
they can
much, man.
find you.
Appreciate you a lot. Always enjoy the conversation. It's always fun speaking with you. And if people would like to tune in tomorrow at it'll be 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. EST, and noon Pacific Time. We're going to continue the conversation here with Wayne over on my channel tomorrow, Raised by Giants, and also on any and all podcast platforms as well. If you'd like to listen to the audio only version of the show, that is also uploaded in a lot of the other alternative platforms as well. And thanks everyone that was in the chat. Couldn't see your guys' comments, but I know that they're always spectacular, especially in Wayne's chat. So thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate you, and appreciate your time here this morning, Wayne.
Oh, Ryder, to me, it's an honor and a joy. I enjoy it, and I'm gonna have you on. again and again, because as long as we can continue to do this, I learn from you. And I mean, I do watch your videos, and you've had some new guests and some new faces, which was very refreshing. And I love the different points of view, that the information that they bring forward. Um, it's well worth, folks. Let's get Ryder over. Ryder, you should be at least, I would say, I'll just go out there on the line. You should be at least 45, 50,000 subscribers. So,
I've
um,
been working so hard at it, Wayne. I've been putting so much effort and time and energy into it, and it's a slow process. And thanks for saying that, because I'm a lot of people have told me the same thing, that it should be way bigger and way higher
so have
than
you
it is.
broke over
But
10,000 yet?
not yet.
Well, folks, let's just make that our goal there. If you haven't subscribed, go over. I left the link below and just subscribe. And, next time you watch them, give them the thumbs up. That's how the algorithm writes. Make sure to write a comment, because that also works as well. So let's help Ryder get over 10,000. I think we should be able to do that very easily. So that's just how I think about it.
Thanks so much, Wayne. Appreciate you a lot, and always a good conversation. And people are interested, get over there and see the part two tomorrow at
Yeah.
2 p.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. PST, and 3 p.m. EST. I probably did that way backwards. It probably should have started at PST, but
Yeah. We're adaptable. Oh, I see so many good Gilbert and Trina and Bonnie and Lori and Letty Ella and all the rest of you. Lady Rose, how are you? So everyone, thank you again. Make sure to tune in, and I'll be promoting it tomorrow when I do the my show over here. Ryder, thank you, brother. I'll see you tomorrow on